just remember, this is not a bunch of Boy Scouts, Kate. These are jihadis.
I understand that, but obviously
So
HTS
let's
and other
remember
rebel coalition forces are in the area as well. So my question is, why wouldn't you leave it to them? Why would you directly intervene yourself?
because they're jihadis.
Israel's military says it struck most weapons stockpiles in Syria in the last 48 hours, claiming it's trying to stop them from falling into the hands of Islamic terrorists. The airstrikes have numbered in their hundreds. The IDF has also confirmed its troops are operating beyond the demilitarized buffer zone in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, but denied it's advancing on Damascus. Let's speak to the Israeli government spokesperson, David Mencer, now. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Kate. Good to be with you.
Really good to have you with us. Look, there has been a clarification from Israel. Earlier today, there were denials that the IDF had crossed the buffer zone into Syrian territory. But Israel has since admitted that they've done this. Why was it denied in the first place? Where did that miscommunication come from?
Well, look, Israel's got no intention of interfering whatsoever in Syria's internal affairs, but our objective is to prevent these hostile jihadi armed forces and Hezbollah from entering into an area close to our border. So, we don't have the luxury of sitting in London and hoping for the best here in Israel. In one sense, we are hoping for the best. We are putting our hand out to peace first and foremost. We want there to be better relations between us and the Syrians and their new regime, whatever it turns out to be. But, we've got our eyes wide open after October the 7th. We've seen the providence, the history of the groups, the rebel groups which have taken over in Syria. We hope we're wrong. We hope it turns out that they are interested in peaceful relations with their neighbours, us being one. But we've also got our eyes open. We're going to do everything in our power to ensure the safety of our own people on the Golan Heights and the rest.
Yeah, I just want to circle back to that question. Why did earlier the IDF or a spokesperson for them call it fake news that your tanks had entered into Syrian territory beyond the buffer zone? That was constantly rebuffed when questions were asked earlier today. Why were there accusations of fake news? Because all that does is it just discredits Israel, doesn't it? If you're not just going to come out and admit it in the first place and justify it, as you have done, with concerns for your own border security.
So look, we've become very accustomed to be painted as the bad guy here in Israel. It's something we face every single day. And the fact is that it was being reported that Israeli tanks were advancing on Damascus. That was simply untrue. We've got no interests in Syria other than defending.
But I heard at least 2 interviews earlier today where the question was, have you gone beyond the demilitarized buffer zone? And they were rebuffed. Fake news was called. I think that's what the defence minister said earlier. So it wasn't whether you were advancing on Damascus, creating another war of your own. It was just simply the question of whether you'd gone beyond the buffer zone, and that was called fake news. So I'm, trying to ask you a reasonable question here. I'm not trying to paint you as the bad guy. Why have you changed your story? Why not just say in the first place, yes, we have gone into Syrian territory because we're really concerned about border security?
I don't think our line has changed at all. And I was at that briefing from the Israeli army. The area of separation between Israel and Syria, it has been vacated by the Syrian army. And we have filled that gap because we're waiting for alternative arrangements to be made after the Syrian army abandoned those positions on the buffer zone. We're working closely with UNDOF, the UN force. Actually, some of these rebel forces threatened them, and we repelled that advance to support the UN forces. Now we've got a very straight line of communications. But there was a story going around, and I heard it myself, and I heard it on the BBC and on Sky and on others. And it was saying that Israeli tanks were advancing. They were 20 miles away from Damascus. Clearly, they were saying what our intentions were. And the Israeli army came out very, very quickly to say that this was indeed fake fake news. There is no tank advance on Damascus. And what we're doing is we're making sure that the bad guys don't get their hands on chemical weapons, because we don't have the luxury of, as I said, seeing what happens here. This is our neighborhood. We've been burnt once. We've been surprised on October the 7th. When jihadis say that they want to march to Jerusalem, the thing is, Kate, we haven't got the luxury of saying maybe they will, maybe they won't.
So hang on, just sorry for butting in, David, but just to be absolutely clear, have ground forces, have they or have they not gone past the area of separation, past the Bravo line and into Syrian territories? Because we were getting reports, photographs earlier of them in Katana, which is 15 miles south of Damascus. So in other words, from photos that we saw earlier, yes, they have. But I would really appreciate the chance to set the record straight here live on the air.
Look, we are acting to prevent lethal weapons from falling into enemy hands. If we have gone into Syrian territory proper,
if you have, surely this is a yes or no. Sorry to press you, but I just want everyone to be completely clear. I'm not casting aspersions either way. I'm just saying, let's be really clear about what Israeli forces are doing at the moment. Have they advanced beyond the Bravo line, beyond the buffer zone into Syrian territory?
Very, very clearly, there is a temporary limited operation in certain parts, including the upper parts of Mount Hermon, to make sure that these areas are not taken by jihadi forces or by Hezbollah. That is our intention. We have said very clearly from the beginning, the Prime Minister said this on Sunday, which is 2 days ago, these are temporary measures. We want a more secure arrangement to be happening on our borders.
Okay.
Our only intention in Syria is to have better relations, but chemical weapons and other weapons of mass slaughter in the Syrian army cannot fall into the hands of these jihadis. Even if in the UK you're calling them moderate jihadis,
I'm not calling them moderate jihadis. I do understand your concerns. I just wonder whether HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or any other group in the rebel coalition asked for your help. How would they feel if they haven't directly asked for your help in this area that you know well? How you imagine they might feel about you taking matters into your own hands? Because you're not giving them a chance to protect their territory, are you?
So the positions were abandoned by the Syrian army to ensure that the jihadis did not take up those positions. Just remember, this is not a bunch of Boy Scouts, Kate. These are jihadis.
I understand that, but obviously HTS and other rebel coalition forces are in the area as well. So my question is, why wouldn't you leave it to them? Why would you directly intervene yourself?
Because they're jihadis. Jihadis are by nature murderers. Jihadis say very, very clearly that they wish to wipe my country off the face of the earth. Hamas were jihadis. Hezbollah are jihadis. It's an Iranian system of proxies which they've set against us. Their intention is to wipe our country off the face of the earth. Again, we can't take a risk and think to ourselves, well, maybe they'll stop being jihadis when they get to our border. Okay, that's just ridiculous, Kate. We're taking action now to ensure that the jihadis know that, number one, Israel wants peace. We've got no intention of occupying any area of Syria whatsoever, but we will defend ourselves, because having jihadis embedded on our border means that they'll get an appetite for massacres, as they did do.
I mean, and from the UN side, for example, the fact that you are in Syrian territory is a violation of Syria's territorial integrity. That is what the UN has. That is the accusation the UN has directed at you today, that technically you shouldn't be in Syrian territory. I understand what you're saying. I understand your concerns and the fact that you might feel vulnerable under what is happening at the moment. But the fact is you're not allowed in that territory. And so there's, potentially been a violation there. Look, I really appreciate you putting your point of view across and just explaining clearly why you feel justified in your actions. That is important to get across. Israeli government spokesperson David Mencer Mencer, thank you for speaking to us.